The child wanted to go to his mother. The woman called Ye Chen a scumbag. Huan Huan is his daughter. He shouldn't even try to use her to pay off his debts. She'll take more shifts and pay off the debt to Hui. The girl cried and wanted to go back to her mother. What this woman earns isn't enough for a couple of meals. Doesn't she know Hui? If they don't pay him back by tomorrow, he'll sell them off piece by piece. He pushed the woman out of the way. The woman didn't give up and wanted her daughter back. She stopped that bastard and demanded that he return her child. The woman, who was holding her child tightly, pushed the man away sharply. She looked determined and frightened, trying to protect her child at all costs. Because of this push, his body swayed backward. Because there were alcohol bottles everywhere, he slipped and fell. His head was tilted back slightly, and his eyes were half open and glazed over. It seemed like it was the end for him. The child was crying, saying that she was very scared. She tried to calm her daughter down, and also told her that it was all over. The woman hugged her child and tried to comfort her. She said that everything was fine if they didn't pay attention to the man lying in front of them. Suddenly, another unfamiliar man burst in with his subordinates. He was looking for a pale-faced guy named Ye Chen. With a happy look on his face, he announced that it was time to pay back the debt. But only then did he notice that the man was dead. At first, the man asked the pale-faced man what kind of performance this was. Was he pretending to be dead? He still had to pay, even if he was dead. Then she turned her attention to the madam and asked if he was telling the truth. The woman shouted for these bastard gangsters to get out of there. Her shouting attracted other people who came to see what was going on. The man turned around and asked what they were staring at. Didn't they look like gangsters? They were just legal debt collectors, so they needed to get out of there. The old man asked how long debt collectors had been kidnapping children. Where was the law? The man asked the old man if he really wanted to get involved. Maybe he wanted his subordinates to look for his money. They immediately decided to leave. The old man had forgotten about the soup on the stove. Then he wanted to continue with this young lady. She already had a knife in her hands. The woman said she would kill anyone who came near her. He just laughed at that. When he was just starting to play with knives, she wasn't even in his plans. Now he would show her how to handle a knife. Thanks to the knife in his hands, he tore her clothes apart. All his subordinates were impressed by their boss's technique. Now a new sight opened up before his eyes. The man admitted that the pale-faced man did know how to choose women after all. Suddenly he felt pain. Huan Huan had bitten him. The man ordered his men to take the girl. Brother Hui told them not to hurt her. She wanted to go back to her mother again. The woman begged them to let her daughter go. She would do anything to keep them from hurting her. Huan Huan was just a child. Does this woman really think she can bargain with him? But he decided to say that he would take everything. Didn't these bastards fear divine retribution for all the evil they had done? He didn't care. Let heaven strike him down immediately to stop him. And that's exactly what happened. Suddenly, lightning struck the dead man's body. Everyone present turned their attention to it. He grabbed the man's hand. The woman couldn't believe it was the same Ye Chen. But how was it possible that he was standing on his feet again, covered in blood? His body was on the verge of death from blood loss. It was weak on its own, and the situation was catastrophic. This had to be ended quickly. He gave the man one last chance. Let him release the child, gather his gang, and get out of here. He just laughed. Handsome Chen must have completely lost his mind. How dare this bastard tell him to get lost? First, he would kill him. However, Ye Chen managed to stop his hand with the knife. He used Lo Tian's divine assembly. The guy put all his strength into it. Muscles appeared on his arms that seemed to have been absent before. Thanks to his strength, he was able to break the man's arm, and the man began to scream in pain. The subordinates were angry that this handsome Chen dared to raise his hand against the boss. Let them just try to do anything else, and then he would see what would happen. However, Ye Chen simply pushed the man aside. The subordinate couldn't believe that this guy had dared to attack him. Another one shouted to his buddy to grab the man, but of course, they didn't even think about getting into a fight with him, so they immediately ran away. There really was no honor left in this world. However, the man then began to claim that there was still a place for loyalty in this world. He tried to lure his subordinate into attacking this man by offering him a promotion. However, he also didn't want to get into a fight with Ye Chen and ran away. The guy even shouted that he would just warn Brother Hugh. He would come to avenge his boss. Then the man loomed over this boss. At first, the man called him Handsome Chen, but then changed his address to Brother Chen. He warned the guy that if he hurt Brother Huey, he knew the consequences. Ye Chen told him to get lost. After that, he ran away. The woman turned to Ye Chen. Then she heard her child's cry and immediately hugged her. The mother apologized to Huan Huan for making her worry. Ye Chen told them to pack their things and leave immediately. If they delayed, those guys would come back for them. Then the woman asked what he was going to do. Just as the man was about to say what he needed to do, his head suddenly began to ache. He realized that he had overestimated his physical abilities. The wounds he had been holding back with his spirit energy could not be healed. The woman immediately rushed to Ye Chen, not understanding what was wrong with him. She begged him not to scare her. The man asked her to help him heal. Then she began to insist that they had no more money for the hospital. She decided to borrow from the neighbors. Ye Chen replied that there was no need to do that, and that she should just do as he said. Huan Huan asked her mother what they were doing. The woman replied that her father and mother were going to play a little. Huan Huan also wanted to play. However, her mother stopped her, saying that it was time for her to go to bed. She heard her words, so she had to leave immediately. They would play tomorrow. Huan Huan asked if she should cover her head. The woman told her to go to bed and not get up until she called her. Now they could begin. The woman couldn't understand how he could be thinking about that now. Just as she was about to ask a question, Ye Chen suddenly kissed her. The girl wondered why he was acting as if he wasn't himself. But if he hadn't driven those thugs away, their whole house would already be in ruins. Classics of the Divine Cave. Section on Healing, the method of yin-yang harmony. True yang stimulates the essence. Streams of desire form an elixir. The flesh is restored. Bones are joined together. Death is reversed. Meanwhile, the man was busy training. As it turned out, he was hitting an unusual punching bag. It was wonderful to let off steam and shake people up. The man turned to Brother Hui, saying that he had promised to leave his wife and child alone if he accepted punishment. He said he would keep his word. Everyone on the street knows that he keeps his word. But if he doesn't let off all his steam, he will have no choice but to sell his wife and child to Myanmar for their organs. The man shouted that this bastard would get what he deserved for all the evil he had done. Hui could only laugh at these words. Suddenly, his subordinates ran up and reported that they had failed to bring in their target. Didn't they know his demands well enough? He had repeated them several times before they left. This girl was urgently requested by Hui's powerful patron, and these incompetents couldn't even carry out his orders. There was no room for error. Were they really incapable of dealing with even a pathetic pimp? He said that it wasn't the same guy named Jiang Tianchen. He had already started to stiffen, but suddenly came back to life like a zombie. He became incredibly strong, so they couldn't even deal with him, and he even broke the boss's arm. Hui asked how he had broken his arm. At first, he apparently did it like this. Then like this. The man started screaming in pain again. He didn't need useless people among his own men. Hui ordered them to get rid of him. The man began begging Brother Hui to spare him and give him another chance. Hui ordered them to take their weapons. They would go after that girl together. Morning came. Ye Chen thanked her for saving him. The woman immediately realized that this man was clearly not him. He had never been so gentle, and he had never made her feel so strange. So she asked who he really was. The man called himself an immortal celestial being who had descended from heaven because of a disaster. This Jiang Tianchen was the mortal incarnation living among humans. It so happened that due to a serious wound, his soul had flown away, and the celestial being was able to take control of his body. Does that mean he is a god? That is indeed the case. Huan Huan woke up and asked her mother if she had finished playing with her father. She wanted to get up and was very hungry. The woman told her to get up, saying that mommy would prepare something for her soon. The man apologized for distracting her mother for so long. Suddenly, they both heard their stomachs growling. The woman even teased him because she didn't expect that immortals needed to eat too. How rude. She told him to sit down because she was going to cook for him too. Huan Huan asked his mother if they would be having noodles for dinner and if she would add an egg. The woman replied that she would add one. He chose the path of oblivion in his youth, severed all ties, and renounced love. He spent 10,000 years achieving the Tao. His heart should be as calm as a quiet lake. So where did this wave of happiness come from? Is this what home feels like? This feeling is wonderful. However, their utopia was suddenly interrupted. It was Hui, along with his gang, who wished them a good morning. He interrupted them just as they were about to eat. The woman's plate of noodles almost fell, but Ye Chen managed to catch it. The man asked who he was, and her whole body trembled because she knew he was Hui's brother. Huan Huan hugged her mother's leg, saying that she was scared. Ye Chen tried to calm them down, explaining that he had fully recovered. Now no one could even hurt them. Hui asked if this was the same Chen who was a pimp, or the handsome guy who worked for the old man. Ye Chen told them to leave, and maybe he would spare them. But suddenly, he was attacked. Hui said that minor characters die because they talk too much. The woman immediately began to worry about her husband, and his child began to worry about his father. And how could they not deal with this trash? The old man was even ashamed of them. Let them take the goods now. The man asked the boss what they should do with the adult woman. Hui replied that they could do whatever they wanted with her, but they had to bury her body when they were done. The subordinates thanked Brother Hui for such a wonderful award. As soon as the man tried to touch them, they immediately started calling for Ye Chen. The man, as if nothing had happened, immediately jumped up and attacked the offender. She was glad that her husband was okay. Hui acknowledged that this kid was pretty good. At the same time, The old man realized that this man possessed superhuman strength. His entire body radiated something strange. He spat out his cigarette and decided to attack. After all, this old man had underestimated him a little. Ye Chen managed to duck his blow. After that, he decided to attack again, but he had to block the blow. The bone in his arm was definitely broken. The old man laughed, because it seemed like he even heard a crack. He began attacking the man again and even thought that human punching bags were the best. Not bad. This guy managed to withstand 80% of his strength. Let him try not to die before the old man reaches the peak of his pleasure. Ye Chen noticed that his punches were fast, accurate, and powerful. His current body was weak, and he wouldn't be able to hold out for long. An idea came to his mind. He had almost forgotten that he could use this technique. As it happened, this technique did not require chi energy. The same could be said about a strong body. It was not needed here. Lodian Divine Thought, Martial Arts Demonstration. Instant creation of a 10-year mental space by divine consciousness. Fighting an enemy while practicing martial arts in a high-speed mental simulation. Hui began to laugh at this fighting stance, but just look at him. 10 years of practice. The old man asked if he was trying to parody Dragon Ball. He mastered boxing skills, and now the guy decided to channel his inner strength. 20 years of practice, and he has mastered the technique of energy fusion. Hai wanted to finally destroy this arrogant bastard. However, Ye Chen didn't even give him the chance to do so. 30 years of practice, and now he is a boxing master who puts his free will into the fight. The best defense is, of course, offense, and for that, he used the hegemonic strike. They couldn't believe that this was happening to Brother Hui. The subordinates decided to join the fight as well. 50 years of practice and fully mastering the way of combat. And now he's an excellent master who can handle a crowd even without a strong body. Hui asked what he was doing. Did this bastard not know who he was up against? Ye Chen decided to use his heavenly eye. Hui said that the man was actually a big shot, someone he'd be better off not messing with. If he dared to touch Hui, then he would be in for a world of pain. Suddenly the main character pulled some object out of him. The old man had no idea how he could have found out about it. Now Ye Chen understood how everything stood. It was as if an evil spirit had escaped from the coin. Ye Chen began to get angry at such insolent actions on his part. The man decided to use Delo's divine power. After that, the spirit returned to its home. Things are getting interesting. This technique is Yin Shan's, the control of a baby's spirit. The ghosts steal his life force in exchange for a burst of fighting power that reaches its peak. Now, Ye Chen began to understand why his physical body was inferior to him in the same form. Standing behind him was not a human being, but an entity from another world. In fact, Hui was only 30 years old, but he did not look his age at all. As soon as this guy leaned toward him, he even called him Brother Chen. They were just trying to make a living. He didn't even need this girl. Hui begged for mercy and for his life to be spared. Ye Chen told him to get lost along with his gangsters. Hai immediately left with his subordinates. Huan Huan ran up to her father and jumped into his arms. Her father was so handsome. Huan Huan even kissed him on the cheek. The man couldn't understand how the simple touch of a mortal girl's lips could warm his heart so much. Ye Chen asked if her father was really that handsome. The girl replied that of course he was. Mom turned to her daughter and said that they had to leave quickly. After her husband's healing yesterday, she had completely forgotten about Huige. Therefore, she wanted to know if that man would bring more dangerous people if he was let go so easily. It would be better if they just packed their things and moved somewhere else. Ye Chen reassured her, saying that he had let that man go on purpose. As soon as she asked why, he explained that the spiritual aura in the mortal world was currently weak, and it usually took too much time to improve it through meditation. The man from Hui was most likely a lone cultivator who had remained in this world after the division between humans and immortals, so he could be useful for their cultivation. She did not expect that this would be their joint self-improvement. The man replied that it was. He then asked if she wanted to join him in self-improvement and achieve immortality. Huan Huan asked her father if that meant they would be able to fly. Ye Chen smiled and replied that of course that was what it meant. How wonderful! Huan Huan wanted to fly with her father, but something was bothering her, namely how she and Huan Huan were supposed to train. Huan Huan had the innate essence of a girl. Ye Chen would prepare pills for her that she would simply have to take. Huan Huan asked if the pills tasted good, and if they could be made with sugar. If she wanted the pills to be sweeter, he would make them that way. That's just wonderful. Huan Huan won't give up sweets, but their bodies were already adult. Their innate essence was gone, and due to excess water in their kidneys, they were weak. The best and fastest way was to practice the dual cultivation method. They can't waste any time. They need to start now to be ready to face new enemies. Does he really want to hold training in broad daylight? Isn't that too much? Huan Huan turned to her mom and dad, saying that they needed to train hard, so she decided to go for a walk so as not to disturb them. The woman told the girl not to go too far. Huan Huan asked if everything would be okay if he wasn't back by lunchtime. The woman just blushed and asked if he wanted her to take the same position as before. The man replied that he had a better idea. That position should work better. The girl asked what he was going to do. Ye Chen advised her to relax and just do as he said, but she couldn't do it at all. Her back hurt so much. The guy reassured her, saying that she would feel better soon. The double perfection method for rejuvenation and lotus blossoming. Yin and yang displacement, purification of the 5 organs. Concealment of the ligaments. Recovery from the birth light. She didn't understand why her whole body was so relaxed. And he was giving off heat too. It was as if she were relaxing in a hot spring. Meanwhile, the two of them were singing karaoke. Let's learn the melody. And they really started meowing. I'll purr for you. And again you could hear meowing. And my heart is beating fast. Hi, interrupted the young gentleman. The young gentleman asked the little boy, did you rush to find me because you brought what I asked for? He also sang a song at the same time. If you don't say you love me, I'll meow. Hai fell to his knees and began to beg the young master for forgiveness. He didn't know what dark arts the little boy's father had studied, but he, who had been an ordinary pimp before, had suddenly become incredibly strong. His brothers were with him. They risked their own lives, but they were still weaker. Because of this news, he even broke the microphone he was holding in his hand. The man put his head on the floor and began to beg the young master for forgiveness. He begged for his life to be spared. Victory and defeat are commonplace in war, for which he rewards and punishes. Little Hui has worked for him for many years, putting in a lot of effort. For all his great achievements, he deserves a reward. He pushed the woman toward him and also told the young man to take her and have fun. Hui looked at the woman to assess her, and thanked the young master for such a generous reward. But he only laughed and touched his head with his hand. Hui did not understand why the young gentleman was doing this. Men, in his opinion, should reward and punish. Even though he couldn't bring the girl, the young gentleman still rewarded him for his efforts. But he had lost the magical artifact that the young master had given him. Of course, such a thing must be punished. He didn't need useless people as subordinates. The girl simply couldn't believe her own eyes. What had just happened? It seemed he would have to take matters into his own hands. The girl immediately turned to the young master and said that if he didn't need anything else, she would leave. He looked at this princess and said that her time had not yet come. How unprofessional of her. The man used the 7-demon purification on the corpse. Hai's appearance changed. Fangs grew on his teeth. His hands had sharp nails. Even his skin color changed. He immediately noticed the girl who was screaming for him not to do it, but it was too late. Everything was stained with her blood. The young gentleman noticed that since this man was feeling better, he should go with him to find the girl. Meanwhile, the two were still busy with their dual self-improvement. Their faces were so close that one might think they could even kiss. Their organs were also being purified. After that, the girl fell down, and the man assumed the lotus position. Ye Chen, as soon as he saw that she was starting to get up, immediately asked how she was feeling. She felt light and comfortable in her body. In fact, she had never felt anything like this before. Even the back pain that had tormented her since birth had disappeared. Already their physical bodies had returned to their perinatal state, filled with vitality. They must continue. The woman asked what they should continue and whether this was not enough. The approaching enemies could not be opposed as mortals. They had to quickly open the small heavenly circulation and enter the realm of Qi perfection. But she had seen on television that this took many years. How could they possibly do it so quickly? Traditional methods of cultivation do indeed take a long time. But he had studied the Tao in the highest realm for thousands of years and mastered all the laws. Thanks to this, combined with the method of dual cultivation, they could enter the realm in a single night. The girl asked if he hadn't said himself that these were artifacts of evil. So why was he holding it in his hand? The essence of understanding the Tao lies in generating essence, transforming it into Qi, and purifying the spirit. The main method of obtaining essence includes breath control and initial meditation, the dual perfection of emptiness and joy, as well as a method of gathering and toning. The method of gathering and toning is a common practice in demonic cults to quickly increase the level of perfection. The Yin Mountain sect is one of those who use the spirit of an evil child to enter the body, forcibly stimulating it and absorbing the life energy it generates. Does this mean that there is also life energy inside it? However, the craftsmanship of such a tool for gathering and toning is extremely crude, and its effect is minimal. Even if it had been made by low-level demonic followers of the past, the gathering alone could have reached the peak of Qi practice. Nevertheless, it is enough for them to break through and practice Qi. They cannot waste time. Only those who break through will be able to gain the strength to protect Huan Huan. Then they must do it now. The girl asked what she should do. The man told her to bite the illusory plate, which he had already done, and let him guide her. She followed his instructions. The method of dual perfection to purify the essence and transform it into qi. It must be gathered and taken to Dantian, nourished with water and fire, and qi will be born. With strength, break through the 3 barriers, namely the tailbone, the spine, and the jade pillow. She felt that it was very good down there. She even heard gas escaping from her body, which made her feel very embarrassed. Ye Chen told her not to worry about it. It was a sign that her qi was breaking through the 3 barriers. She would feel all kinds of pain, but she had to let it flow naturally. This dual cultivation combined the strength of 2 people and allowed them to quickly and decisively overcome all 3 barriers. He would be the first to help her overcome the barrier. She felt a wave of heat spreading from her head to her toes. The woman asked if this meant they had succeeded. She couldn't believe that the effect of dual perfection was so simple and quick. Even if this method seems simple at first glance, it is difficult to achieve in practice. This is because, during the improvement process, both participants must completely trust each other in order to see it through to the end. When he began to improve himself, everyone around him was distrustful and selfish. People who were able to completely trust each other were too rare. At any moment, mutual improvement could turn into forced collection and death. This means that he has only just descended into the mortal world, and already trusts her so much. All his memories of her are stored in his mind. His earthly incarnation let this girl down, but in his eyes, she is a real treasure. Now she must help him break through the barrier. Meanwhile, the girl was busy playing in the sandbox. Behind her stood Hui in his new form. Ye Chen stopped immediately as soon as he sensed an enemy's presence. The girl immediately turned around to find Huan Huan. The main character told her to hold on tight and not move. She had to concentrate on helping him break through the barrier and leave the rest to him. Huan Huan started screaming for her mom and dad to help her as soon as she saw someone attacking her. At that moment, he was kicked away. It was Ye Chen, carrying his wife in his arms. They heard Huan Huan's cries. As soon as Huan Huan saw her father's figure, she immediately hid behind his leg. She was very scared because there was a monster there. Ye Chen told her not to be afraid. He asked the girl to stand behind him and close her eyes. Her father would protect her. It was clear from his expression that he was clearly not himself. The man noticed that this was clearly an improved corpse. Now it was clear that the one standing behind him had already made his move. As soon as he saw that this master was attacking them, he decided to unleash his full potential by combining attack and defense. But it seemed like he didn't even react to being hit. He just wanted to keep going. Ye Chen knew that improved corpses were a real headache. They feared neither pain nor death. They fought with suicidal determination to defeat their opponent. Then the monster grabbed the man's arm and prepared to scratch him with its claws. This is just perfect. Ye Chen felt the acupuncture point Yuzhen. At the same time, she was worried about her husband. Chotian was exposed. The man had entered the realm of qi purification. Following the orthodox methods of the mystical gates, true yang defeats evil. After that, the monster collapsed. Ye Chen asked if she was okay. She replied that everything was fine. Huan Huan asked her mom and dad if they had defeated the monsters yet. The man and woman said with joy that the monster had been defeated. But only then did the woman notice that it was Hui's brother. She had no idea what had happened to him in such a short time. Ye Chen explained that he had been turned into an improved corpse. The woman asked if he had become like the zombies they showed on TV. You can't deal with zombies that easily. They're just dead dolls whose souls were taken out while they were alive, and whose essence was changed. Then they heard the sound of clapping. It was a young gentleman who noticed that this man had indeed been able to destroy his puppet. Therefore, he was sure that this guy was from a serious sect. That's why he was able to defeat his lousy mongrel so easily. Ye Chen told the two of them to go home. The woman asked him to be careful. The young master simply watched as they ran into the house. Come to think of it, this guy is just an ordinary lower-level cultivator. But he has a hidden, rather unique talent. What a waste of potential. Ye Chen didn't want to hear any more of that conversation, and he immediately found himself face-to-face with him. The man used a full-power strike. This technique is called the Mountain Shattering Strike, the realm of a grandmaster. But the young gentleman only smiled when the man planned to attack him. Another fighter appeared in front of him and immediately attacked Ye Chen. However, he reacted quickly and jumped back. In literally one jump, he was above his head. The man was able to step back easily to avoid the blow. Then he struck himself. He immediately recognized them as the ghost troops of Mount Yin. The man wanted to see what other tricks he had up his sleeve. The young gentleman just laughed when he saw that this idiot had put all his strength into defeating a corpse and a ghost warrior that he had thrown at him. Does this man really think he can fight him? He even decided to demonstrate to his opponent the indescribable gap between a wild fighter like Ye Chen and a clan that possessed traditional techniques. This man destroyed his lackey. So be it. But if he obediently hands over his woman and daughter, then kneels down and thoroughly cleans his boots. Then an unprecedented reward awaits him. The young master will give him the opportunity to become his new dog. The ghostly warriors who appeared attacked the main character. However, Ye Chen only smiled. The ghostly warriors couldn't even move. The young master's throat began to tighten from the reversed why. This is simply impossible. He is developing pure yang qi. Therefore, the man did not understand how he managed to revive this corpse. Moreover, it was unclear why this corpse had become so powerful. The man kindly explained that this was the true method of purifying a corpse. When a corpse is merged with a child's yin, their agility and strength rise to a whole new level. He had that very coin in his chest. The young gentleman asked if this bastard really thought he could keep him. He had just missed a precious chance to live, even as a dog. Even a fragment of his body was far more precious than this man. He bit his finger, and blood appeared. With his bloody finger, he pointed to his forehead, because he wanted to show him something. A purple mark appeared on his forehead, signifying incineration. It resembled a silkworm. The man used the shield of the golden silkworm. He just smiled maliciously, because he knew that this bastard was now doomed. At the same time, the main character activated the Grandmaster of Combat Dell. Full potential. All he had to do was focus his strength to seal the acupuncture points and cut the meridians. His blows hit 4 points. The young gentleman fell to his knees and began to yell at this bastard who was begging to die. He opened his shirt and was also angry because he really wanted to kill this man. He literally wanted to tear his body to pieces. He took the bell that hung on a chain around his neck and began to call out to the spirits of the 9 worlds of the underworld to hear his cry. In fact, he was saying something incomprehensible that could even be considered slander. Ye Chen just listened silently to what he was saying and did not even interfere. The man wanted to summon a powerful spirit. After these words, the main character slapped him hard across the face. Ye Chen even wondered if the unfortunate remnants of the end of the Dharma era became dumber the longer they lived. One could think so, just looking at the beaten man now lying at his feet. This idiot even had the nerve to utter a summoning spell right in the middle of battle. Of course, he noticed how the monster began to stir. It was a clear sign from Togo that it was time to get to work. Mom and baby heard a knock. Then they heard Ye Chen's voice, which calmed them down and mentioned that it was him. As soon as the door opened, Ye Chen smiled and said that everything was finally over. She could only breathe a sigh of relief, but now something else was bothering her. Standing before them was a man unknown to anyone, dragging a young gentleman behind him. Even Huan Huan recognized this monster, and she became frightened again. It was Hui. With a reassuring gesture, Ye Chen placed his hand on her head and asked her not to worry anymore. He was now obedient. He would do whatever she asked. Huan Huan smiled and asked if her father was telling the truth. The man replied that she should try and see for herself. Huan Huan approached the monster and asked if he could show her his heart. Using his hands, he tried to mimic a heart. This was so funny to her that she even asked him to stand on his hands. Hai stood on his hands and squeezed his legs together. Huan Huan was delighted by the sight. Of course, she didn't even think about stopping and wanted to give him new commands to follow. However, her parents told her to go home. The woman still wanted to know why Chen had brought him here. In this era, when spiritual energy is lacking and spiritual artifacts have disappeared, they are nothing more than the crippled remnants of the Yin Mountain. Although many of their kind have been lost, they still carry the burden of 1,000 years of experience. Judging by his appearance, he must be the heir to this path of cultivation, which had reached its peak in the realm of Qi purification. That was why his body was filled with pure essence. The man thought that he could help them advance quickly in their cultivation. Moreover, his entire body could be considered a treasure trove. Tian Chan suggested looking to see if he had any useful artifacts that could help them in their fight against future enemies, and also in protecting Huan Huan. The young master finally woke up and was confused. How dare this man tie him up? He even asked if this bastard knew who he was. This insignificant cultivator dared to touch a powerful family from the southeast. The main character told him to just shut up. He shoved a dirty sock into his mouth. Then he noticed how Huan Huan was entertaining herself with his newly made zombie. Ye Chen wanted to see what useful things he had. He ripped the pendant from his neck, which the young master had intended to use to summon a higher spirit. She didn't understand why this man was wearing the seal. The guy explained that it was a spell seal. It was used to make a contract with the evil spirits of the 9 worlds of the underworld. It served 2 purposes: summoning spirits and banishing them. However, powerful spirits could not be repaired directly. Summoning them came at a high price. However, he could see that the seal was rather crude. It was unlikely that it could summon anything powerful. The man spat out the sock and also claimed that it was all nonsense. He was just an ignorant fool, so it was no wonder he dared to fight him. It was a precious relic that had been passed down from generation to generation in the Sei family. It had been used to worship a fierce ghost king who had terrorized the stock exchange for centuries. Could this bastard really not know how terrifying the Xi family's legacy was? Ye Chen slapped him across the face. The man clearly didn't expect anyone to dare to hit him. When he tried to ask another question, Ye Chen struck him again. It was a silent slap that spoke volumes. In Ye Chen's opinion, a low-level seal of worship for the Ghost King had been obtained. Then he received 1 gold silkworm of the lowest grade from the king of the Julie tribe. The main character decided to take off even his belt. The woman asked why Ye Chen was taking off his pants. A spiritual artifact was obtained, namely a belt that mesmerizes the mind. Then he took out many talismans of the warriors of Mount Yin. After that, Ye Chen found a protective artifact, a piece of the talisman's golden underwear. The woman asked what it was. Ye Chen had never seen anything like it before. He didn't feel any magical energy coming from it, but it was very finely crafted. The girl noticed that it looked like a bank card, but she had never seen one of that color before. The man explained that it was a black VIP card, which these pathetic, stinking losers would never get even in 1,000 lifetimes. It was unlimited. If they let the young gentleman go, he promised to give them the card. Ye Chen remarked that it was just mortal currency. Soon, countless people would rush to give them this card. A little later, she looked at all the things they had received. This man was truly covered from head to toe in treasures. The quality wasn't great, but in times like these, it was better to have something than nothing. Meanwhile, their hostage had something in mind. Ye Chen told her to stop looking at them. It was time to focus on something more valuable. The girl asked what he was talking about. He pointed to the hostage, and also mentioned that the essence of a person at the peak of Qi cultivation was a real nourishing elixir for those seeking perfection. In an era when spiritual energy was so scarce, reaching the peak of Qi cultivation at this age was certainly not easy. He must have drained the life force of many people. The man asked frantically what he was going to do. Ye Chen explained that since this man had taken so much life energy from others, it would be fair if they did the same to him. How dare this man do such a thing? His father or grandmother, or anyone else in his family could crush him with their little finger. This ignorant fool really doesn't realize how deep his family's roots go. Suddenly he was struck in the face again. This time, however, he even started bleeding. The girl asked him not to say that he would have to press his mouth against the card again to absorb the essence of this man. Ye Chen asked how he could possibly allow this guy to enjoy something so pleasant. In addition to the paired improvement method for collecting essence, there is also a method of absorbing it through a yin child, which he used. Masters who have reached a high enough level can use the star absorption technique to directly separate the essence from the target's body. She knew this because she had also read the novels. Therefore, she suggested that her dear husband take his essence. She used to think it was a little cruel, but she also felt no guilt for depleting such a scoundrel. Their levels of perfection were not yet high enough, so they would have to rely on paired perfection to achieve the same result as with the star absorption technique. After that, he suggested with a happy face that they start right away. The woman blushed because she wanted to know if they had to take the same strange poses as before. Ye Chen replied that it was not necessary at this time. The principle of the star absorption technique was quite simple. It originally arose as a strange phenomenon during a fundamental collision between two cultivators when their internal energy rose and collided with force. The two streams of energy that emerged formed a powerful vortex that caused the meridian points of the body to create a vacuum. This forcibly extracted the essence from their flesh. Now she understood everything. A similar principle exists in cupping therapy. Judging by this body's knowledge of the modern world, it was all true. After that, he kissed her, suggesting they begin. Double fish murder, the technique of star absorption. He reached out his hand to the hostage and began to absorb his life force. The girl also felt the life force of a stranger flowing into her body. The guy asked her to wait a little. Absorbing too much essence could affect the meridians. She should follow his advice. She needed to direct the essence she had just absorbed into her own dantian, the ancestral estate of the Xi family. A worried servant rushed into the room and told the master that something terrible had happened. The young master is in danger. This is simply outrageous. He is entertaining distinguished guests here. How dare this man behave so rudely? The monk replied that everything was fine, and there was no need to worry. Butler Zhang had always been reliable and responsible, and if he was behaving in this manner, it meant that something serious had happened. The monk asked if something bad had happened to the young master. He didn't even know how to say it. The man explained that the young master had asked, so the butler had to answer clearly. The insect child who had been used to spy on the young master had returned. The butler immediately asked about his whereabouts. The young master went to the pimp who was going to sell his daughter. He left his servants behind to act heroically alone. But this thug turned out to be an evil master, with a low level of Qi purification. He was plotting something against the master, and it seems that the master fell into a trap. Whether the young gentleman is alive or dead is unknown. The man immediately stood up and ordered the insect child to be released quickly so that it could lead him there. The monk had watched the young master grow up. He had always been polite and quick-witted. In addition, the head of the family had recently done the monk a great favor, and he was worried about how he could repay him for his kindness. Therefore, the monk wanted to take care of this matter himself. An excellent opportunity for this presented itself before his eyes. Since the young gentleman had offered, he would not refuse. The head of the family decided to leave the matter in his care, and in return, he would also show his gratitude. Time was running out, so the monk asked to be shown the way. The man's face was dry. He didn't understand what these bastards had done to him. How dare they destroy his foundation and steal his essence? The girl perked up because she felt simply wonderful. She could even hear Huan Huan playing and laughing in the park. As one progresses in self-improvement, the sensitivity of the soul naturally increases as well. At that moment, the man sensed that these guys had already reached the peak of chi purification, judging by their increased energy. Now, Ye Chen wanted to see what kind of prey this guy would become. He immediately guessed that this bastard knew everything. But still, the man wanted to understand how he was able to figure it all out. After all, he himself had sent the message with the insect spirit without hiding it at all, and now he was showing off. The main character would have personally hidden hundreds of golden moth mothers and their offspring among thousands of insect spirits to hide their path. He just laughed at the fool's words. These moths were extremely rare and very difficult to breed. Only members of the main family were allowed to carry one mother and one child with them. And now this idiot was claiming that he could use thousands of insect spirits. Ye Chen hit him again and told the idiot to shut up. The man suggested that they prepare themselves first. The woman asked what he wanted to prepare for. They had to prepare for their next enemy. The one they would face would most likely be from the Foundation realm, or even higher. Although they were at the peak of their purification, fighting someone from the Foundation realm with their bare hands was like a child fighting an adult. It was clear as day that they would lose. The woman asked what they should do now. The level of perfection certainly affects strength, but other factors also play a decisive role in battle. In addition to the realm, magical weapons and tactics can also influence the outcome of a battle. If a child and an adult both have weapons, then even if the child is at a disadvantage, they still have a chance of winning. If the child has a weapon that is called a gun in this world, the chances of victory become equal. If the child's weapon is significantly superior to the adult's, victory is guaranteed. That's right. These magical artifacts work against equals, but they are useless against the improving realm of the Foundation. Therefore, he needs to improve these magical objects. So this is the place. The monk asked permission to investigate the situation himself. To do this, he used a Buddhist spiritual technique. Divine vision, clairvoyance. He noticed two people who were perfecting themselves. A man and a woman, both at the peak of their chi purification, and a frightening puppet corpse. This is truly a demonic cultivator. The butler asked if everything was all right with the young master. The young master was still alive, but his aura was weak. It felt as if his essence had been taken away by evil magic. Ye Chen immediately sensed a divine gaze. How quickly they had arrived here. The butler begged the monk to save the young master, and he immediately disappeared before his eyes. He appeared before the main character, who asked who this man was. This is quite strange. This man has only the power of purified chi, but his spiritual intuition is so great that he cannot comprehend him. This humble monk bears a name unknown in the Dharma. He has come to return the young master of the sea family. He begs this kind man to return to the righteous path before it is too late. And again he heard the same nonsense about throwing down his weapon and becoming a Buddha. He sees that the master is someone who values reason and decides not to attack directly. Therefore, he decides to reveal what the young master of the sea family wanted to do. He tried to kidnap her daughter and the main character to practice dark arts. He wanted to kill Ye Chen and his wife so they wouldn't tell him anything. So he had to defend himself, or he would have died at the hands of this young gentleman. So he became curious to know how the master would reason in such a situation. The butler considered this nonsense. He called the man a demonic apostate who twisted the truth with lies. His daughter was perfectly fine, so how dare he slander the young gentleman? The monk's young nephew had been distinguished by his excellent manners since childhood. Based solely on the words of this man, in the presence of a method of creating evil puppet corpses that had never been seen before, how could he even think that the monk would believe his words? He must release the hostage immediately. As a monk who reveres the heavenly virtue of caring for life, it would be better to renounce his path of self-improvement and surrender all the artifacts of evil. And then the monk will let him live, as an ignorant fool who does not know what good and evil are, spouting righteousness with every word, barely understanding a single one of them. This young gentleman is his hostage. If the monk moves, the man will take his life, and then they will both die. The butler called him a scoundrel. If he harms the young gentleman, they will make him pay with his life. Amitabha. Then the monk, in righteous anger, will strike like a vajra, subduing demons and evil, and seize this man before they continue their conversation. He turned to the woman inside who was striving for perfection. If she dared to harm the monk's nephew, he would destroy them all on the spot. After that, the main character immediately noticed that the monk had grabbed him by the neck. After all, Ye Chen's plan had worked. This monk was cautious, just as he had thought. He would not dare to use all his strength to kill the main character. He only wanted to capture him and use him as a bargaining chip. The main character could not lose now. The gap between the benefactor and the monk should already be obvious, so he shouldn't force the monk to take action. Suddenly, he vanished before the ghostly warrior could strike. After that, he found himself a little further away. The butler couldn't believe that this man could still summon ghostly warriors. But this was something even more advanced. The ghostly general himself was standing next to him. He really did have some abilities. It was no surprise that despite his nephew's development, he had fallen for this man's tricks. But something more serious than a simple ghost general was needed against the monk. The ghost warrior and general attacked the monk. He raised a shield around himself. The ghostly general tried to destroy the shield. However, the monk decided to send them to the afterlife using the palm of great compassion. A simple ghost general was no match for a master of the middle realm like the monk. Suddenly, something struck his hand. After that, red streams formed in front of him. From there, a hand appeared and grabbed the monk by the throat. The butler did not understand what was happening. The ghostly general was simply distracting the echo so that Ye Chen could summon him. This was the Ghost King. The butler also realized that this was the Ghost King whom the Sea family had worshipped for centuries. But how did this bastard manage to summon him and take control? To command 5 immortal and ghostly beings, heavenly, earthly, human, divine, and ghostly, one must use desires as bait, luring them with what they crave. This principle has remained unchanged since ancient times. How could everything have turned out this way? Master Ming Ming is obviously much stronger than this guy. How easily he was defeated. From the very beginning, this guy led the monk to want to capture him, not kill him. Then he used the Ghost General to trick the monk into using the banishment spell. And at the moment when the monk couldn't dodge, the Ghost King struck his vital point. If it weren't for this plan, the Ghost King would have been on the same level as the monk. Quite a clever scheme. For such a young person, his plans are completely incomprehensible. Truly frightening. Suddenly, he began coughing up blood. The Ghost King took the base elixir out of his body. What a remarkable treasure. He then wanted to swallow the elixir. However, he did not let him do so, for this elixir was meant only for him. The Ghost King immediately released the monk and appeared right in front of Ye Chen. What this guy offered him was payment for just one action. For causing pain to the descendants of the Sea family, the Ghost King could have eaten him, his wife, and his daughter alive. How dare he order him not to hand over the military trophies? The profound art of transforming yin into yang that he had given to this ghost would help him overcome the difficulties faced by a mid-level Ghost King. He had to understand that the main character could offer even more. Currently, fewer than 100 people in all of China can reach the foundation level. With these precious elixirs and ghost-perfecting techniques that this guy gave him, he will make a breakthrough and reach the highest level of Ghost King. What could be more valuable than that? Ye Chen pushed his hand away. The man asked about a method that would help him take another step forward, surpassing the title of king and becoming a ghost lord. That's impossible. That method was lost 1,000 years ago. So where could this man have gotten it from? Once the main character dealt with these two, he would send him a message. Whether this method was real or not was up to him to decide. In the end, he gave him the elixir. If it turns out that this man lied to him, he will not forgive him so easily. The current generation of cultivators in the age of the end of Dharma is arrogant and self-confident. He will give them the best method for cultivating ghosts. They just need to train as if their lives depend on it. On the day he emerges from seclusion, he will become Ye Chen's ghost servant. The guy told them to tell his boss that if he wanted his son back alive, he'd have to offer something just as valuable. The butler asked him to at least name a price so that he could convey it accurately. Let them prepare as much as they think this man is worth. Now let them leave. This man really knows how to bargain. He will certainly convey these words to his master, but he has insulted the family from the southwest and the Lotus sect. The butler advised him to be careful and not get burned while playing with fire. After that, they left. The main character returned to his family, who immediately greeted him. The girl asked her father what this treasure was. It was so beautiful and so funny. The The boy explained that it was the elixir of the Foundation, purified in tribute to Tien, the perfecting king of the Foundation Kingdom. Impossible. How did he manage to defeat the master of Min Min? He was a mid-level elder of the kingdom, a foundation from the Hall of Suppression of the Lotus Sect demons. And once again, the main character struck him. A flying slap from the perfect purification of Qi. Is he really going to use this for Barnal's improvement? Tianchen noticed that she was becoming more and more skilled. The girl replied that it wasn't true, although the feeling was indeed pleasant. She immediately slapped herself on the cheeks, to drive such thoughts away from you. And she really did need his help. The man mentioned that he had praised her sincerely. Huan Huan asked his mother why her face had turned red like a tomato. It was already very late, so it was time for her daughter to go to bed. Mom and Dad still had a lot of work to do before they could stop by. Huan Huan asked her mother if it was okay for her to stop by. The thing was, they wanted to become stronger so they could better protect their daughter and stop the bad people who wanted to take her away from her parents. She asked her mom and dad to work in comfort and protect her. She was already asleep and promised not to peek. A little later, she noticed that this pose for paired improvement of the Foundation realm was too strange. This method activates a divine ability called the Gate of the Ears before laying the foundation. Don't they have the Foundation elixir? Why can't they just absorb it like before? On the path from purifying Qi to creating the Foundation, it is necessary to concentrate the Qi flowing through the meridians into the essence of the Foundation. At this point, the QE in their bodies is in excess. In the standard process of creating the Foundation, a person must temper their body through more than 10 years of rigorous training. All this is done to strengthen the muscles and bones, and only then can the body withstand the enormous pressure of the compressed internal Qi. If the physical body is not strong enough, it will be like a balloon. Excessive pressure will cause all of its meridians to rupture. This guy from the Sea family has reached the peak of Qi purification, and now he wants to take Huan Huan away from them. He wants to use the methods of the mountain to bypass the realm of body perfection and forcibly reach the realm of Foundation. Thanks to paired cultivation, they can unlock the divine ability of the Ear Gate, which allows their bodies to recover instantly after injury. Now she understood everything. Even if the ball deflated, it could immediately recover. The name of the Radians would not be broken. During this cultivation, they must rid themselves of all unnecessary thoughts. When their emotions and sensations reach their peak, the elixir activates the hidden effects of the divine ability of the ear in their bodies. Are their bodies really that amazing? Just like beautiful jade, which remains nothing more than a stone if no one recognizes it. Without direct guidance, no one will understand that the true treasure lies within them. Now it was time for them to begin. After that, they both felt something. Tianchen tried to understand what that feeling was. It truly shook his heart, Dalo Dao. Why did it feel so incredibly good to both of them? It was his first time using this method of laying the foundation. He had never had such an experience before. It was a real pleasure. She couldn't take it anymore. It was even better than their first pair cultivation. She couldn't hold back anymore. The time had come. The precious elixir has ripened. We must gather it quickly. The first level method of unlocking the divine ability of the ears through pair perfection. The fruit of yin-yang bodhi. After absorption, the body will not decay. The physical form will remain unchanged forever. The miraculous divine ability is bearing its first fruits. He did not understand what they were doing. The man had never heard of the gates of the ears before. Despite his youth and low level of refinement, this boy is very cunning. In all his years of serving the demon, he had never met anyone so evil and difficult to read. Perhaps the master knows from which lineage he inherited his technique of refinement. A woman burst in, wanting to know where her beloved son, Seibao Qing, was. What kind of cursed creature on the brink of death dared to kidnap her son? Master Ming was seriously injured while trying to save his son, so there was no need to make a scene. He suggested they talk outside. She called him a useless old man. He couldn't even handle a normal, unknown, improving disciple. And now he had allowed her son to suffer such humiliation. What kind of head of the Ghost King sect was he? He demanded that she stop screaming. It was because she had spoiled him. He was reckless and devoid of any cunning. Let him just think about how he had been deceived by some fool who was greedy for death and had dragged his family into this whole mess. Their son carries on the legacy of Lushang and the Ghost King's cult. His position is noble, and his talent is unmatched. As long as he trains hard and improves every day, nothing else matters. Thanks to the joint support of the Sea family and Chen, who are paving the way for him, he is destined to gain great power and glory in the future. These lowly worms, worse than cockroaches, are not even worthy of licking his boots. And that vile Zhukov, who fell out of a trash can, dares to go against him. She will save her son herself. She'd better not act impulsively. This guy is incredibly perceptive. Even Master Ming Ming fell into his trap. His wife and that guy are on the same level, so he didn't understand what she was trying to achieve. First, the head of the family will come up with a plan. Once their son is safe, he will take this guy's soul and make her better. If it weren't for this plan for the future, does he really think that the eldest daughter of the Chen family, namely Bao Qin's mother, would marry him? She said she wouldn't wait another minute. His wife will deal with it herself. It's very interesting to see what kind of unprecedented trick he is capable of to survive the next battle. Is she really talking about the dowry she brought into this family? So be it. Since he insulted the senior member of the Lushang sect, his entire family will not even receive the mercy of a quick death. The man will remain with Master Min Min and preserve the alliance with the Lotus sect. Their son's life is now her responsibility. All he can think about is politics. Even now, he is only at the peak of the founding kingdom. If it weren't for their son, the family's legacy would have ended with him. She called him useless trash. He couldn't even respond to such insults. She entered a huge temple. A woman rang the bells and told him to follow her. The coffin opened immediately. 2 pairs of eyes appeared. Could it really have worked? Tianchen decided to cut his hand, but the cut immediately began to regenerate quickly. She found it incredible. Could this be the legendary divine ability of the Gate of Ears? Tianchen replied that it was only a basic effect of the divine ability. A new enemy would soon arrive. They needed to prepare properly, so he told her to take off her clothes. Shouldn't they be doing something more serious? For everything to work out, she had to undress, and she had to do it quickly. However, she wanted her husband to cover the bastard's ears and eyes first. Bao King replied that he had been with all kinds of women. With such insignificant charms, she wasn't even worth a single glance from him. She demanded that the man be silenced. After that, he was hit on the head, and he had to turn away too. Only Tianchen could watch. Then she began to undress. He watched her naked form, even with a smile on his face. A little later, he decided to show Huan Huan a trick. The girl asked if this was really magic. This is a basic fire control spell that can be used in the realm of ki purification. Of course, it flows through different meridians. This allows you to create many different types of energy manifestations. For example, by directing the flow of ki along the meridians in this way, you can create the basic spell of water condensation. By lowering the temperature of your palm, you can condense the surrounding water vapor from the air into a liquid. It can even be turned into ice. Did Daddy really just make ice cream with his hands? Huan Huan wanted to eat it. He let her. It was cold and delicious. She wanted to do it too so she could eat lots of ice cream. Tianchen would teach her. Very soon, when Daddy gathered all the necessary materials, he would make her some vitamin supplements. She was happy because she would be able to make lots of delicious treats. Suddenly, something began to crawl toward his feet. She shouted for Tianchen to look at it quickly. He knew that his mother had come. Now they were all doomed. The woman screamed for him to catch that bastard. However, the young gentleman disappeared. This is the 5-ghost transformation technique. How dare these damn parasites destroy the foundation of her son's improvement? Even if she tore them into 1,000 pieces, it would not satisfy her anger. The boy begged his mother not to kill them. He understood that the man might know various lost techniques that could be useful. They must be captured and their souls extracted. Their souls must be purified and turned into ghost slaves. He wanted to torture them forever. Tianchen merely smirked. She called him a useless, rootless fool. Pure luck had led him down the path of perfection, but he didn't know his place and decided to mess with an influential family. Her son wanted them to suffer a fate worse than death, and she had 100 ways to make that happen. There appeared a 100-year-old corpse king. The main character recognized him immediately. She ordered them to break his limbs, peel off his skin, and tear out his tendons. After that, the woman rang a bell. The corpse king immediately disappeared before his eyes. Then she almost touched Tianchen's chest. However, the guy managed to react and was able to jump away thanks to his opponent's body. It was too fast. Now the corpse king used his claws, but even so, the main character managed to jump back. Fortunately, Tianchen had developed the divine ability of invulnerability in advance. But even with all his strength, he could barely stay alive under the onslaught of this black corpse king. She had thought that this man was truly powerful, but it turned out that she had brought all her dowry for nothing. Even when he was still a child, she fed him endless spiritual herbs. She bathed him in an indecent amount of medicinal baths and made sure he was fed from first-class dishes. How could he have fallen into the hands of such a nobody? He had asked his mother not to be so careless. This kid was slippery. And it wasn't just him who fell into his trap, but Master Ming Ming as well. And Tianchen had developed some kind of divine ability that he had never even heard of. He pointed to how quickly the wound on his neck had healed as proof. It was true. It was a complicated spell. It was a divine ability. But how could someone, at the simple stage of ki purification, possess such a powerful divine ability? While this man is distracted by the Corpse King, we need to capture his wife and daughter to make him doubt his own actions. And that's a good idea. The woman immediately moved toward them, but Hui wanted to stop her. As soon as she noticed, she held up a bell. A mediocre trick with a reanimated corpse. It was shameful to use such a trick against the Lushang sect. The woman shielded Huan Huan and demanded that she not come any closer, or she would regret it. How dare these useless ants kick and scream? If this girl weren't needed by her son, she would have killed them long ago. Suddenly she summoned fire. He immediately feared for his mother. Meanwhile, Ye Chen was pleased with the progress of the training. However, even so, she was fine. The woman was able to dispel the fire. She was angry, not understanding how this fool dared to attack her. She then decided to use a flash of light to blind her. The woman immediately covered herself. Following the flash of light, a small lightning spell was cast. Windblade, mystical ice spell, needle control, a strike that sealed the acupuncture points. All the spells hit their target. After that, she decided to use all these spells again. Huan Huan watched as her mother completed her third circle and uttered the same incantations. She was even impressed. The bell fell along with the woman's body. Needles were stuck all over her body. He couldn't understand how she could cast so many spells in a row. Didn't she need to restore her energy?